What if you could turn your professional expertise into a high profit, low maintenance education business that runs 24/7, 365 days a year? Today's guest, Justin Allan Montgomery, did just that, starting and scaling an 8-figure course business. And now he's helping others do the same thing through ProCourseStart. He's here to bust myths, share frameworks, and challenge the just build a funnel crowd. So if you're a lawyer who is tired of trading your hours for dollars, this episode is going to change your mindset. Welcome to your Profitable Law Firm podcast. I'm Kelley Brubaker, your dedicated host, passionate about empowering law firm owners. Let's dive into the hidden strategies that lead to overflowing profits, scaled growth, and thriving lives. And this is where overwhelm transforms into confidence, enabling you to create and enjoy your dream firm and your dream life. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Kelley. Appreciate you.
Anything else you want to add to your bio?
Yeah, I might give you just a brief history, kind of, who I am, why I'm here. So I'm a nurse practitioner by training. So I know everyone listening to this is probably a lawyer. So I'm a nurse practitioner, which is a master's degree prepared, nurse basically. So it's kind of in between nurse and doctor, essentially. I can prescribe medication, that kind of a thing. And, but anyways, I was just getting burned out, just like lawyers, accountants, et cetera. We're a profession. We have to exchange our time for money. We have to provide a service, which requires our time. And so I was just getting burnt out. And, I started some medical practices. I was doing well financially, but I was still exchanging my time for money. I was still seeing patients. I was still grinding away. And I decided it was time for a change. So I decided to leverage my knowledge and start a continuing education course business. So instead of consulting with people on how to start their own practice, which requires my time, I decided to create a course on how to start your own practice as a nurse practitioner, MD, DO, physician's assistant, whatever. And so I created a course and sold it and made like $50,000 in 7 days and realized that I was onto something. And so that was way back in 2020, and it's 2025 now, and that this is a 8-figure yearly business, and it allowed me to retire at the age of 39, basically. And so here I am now, and retirement at 39 years old is just something that's not very realistic for someone like me. You can only fish and play golf so much, okay? Right. And so, I hate to say it, it gets old after a while, and so I decided I needed to be productive. So I started a new business called ProCourseStart, where I teach professionals, medical professionals, legal professionals, accounting professionals. It doesn't matter. The process is exactly the same. I teach people how to start continuing education course businesses so you can develop passive income, basically.
No, and I love that. So, I love what you've done. I took a peek at your, the elite nurse practitioner method or model, and the whole website, the way it's structured. Lots of thought and intent went into this. And so, I'm just really excited, and I want to be able to share this idea. I talk to lawyers, and I follow some lawyers on LinkedIn that are starting down a similar path, but I don't think they're where you are. And so I want to be able in this episode to kind of get them move the needle a little bit. And so, I know a lot of lawyers, even if they don't have some type of a community or some type of a passive income setup already, they're really experienced. They have deep knowledge in practicing law, but they don't see that as something that they can monetize outside of client work. So how would we convince somebody, if you're meeting with somebody, say you're doing, one-on-one consultation with a lawyer, and they're like, hey, love what you're doing with, continuing education. I want to do it, but I practice law. How do we get them to say, okay, but this is how you do it? What would they be able to leverage with their legal experience to be able to create some type of continuing education?
Yeah. So step number one is going to be, this is kind of how I design it when I consult with people or people who take, or join our mastermind or whatever. The way I frame it is that you need to first develop your value proposition. So, building a continuing education course business, I frame it as a way like building a house, basically, right? So you have to lay the concrete, you have to lay the foundation. That foundation is your value proposition and your mission. So I know this kind of sounds all, pie in the sky kind of stuff, value proposition, mission statement, blah, blah, blah. But it's so critically important for continuing education course business because, what is a value proposition? It's the value you propose to the world, not necessarily the world, but to a target market, right? And so for a lawyer that's sitting there who's maybe been practicing for 10, 15, 20 years, you might not realize, but you are sitting on an absolute gold mine of information inside your mind. Your experience, the blood, sweat, and tears you put into this, your skills, your knowledge, all of this stuff is extremely valuable. You might not think it is, but it's extremely valuable to new graduate lawyers, to even seasoned lawyers out there, lawyers who might want to diversify their skill set. And so you need to figure out, how can I leverage my knowledge and turn it into a solid value proposition? Essentially, how can my knowledge transform the life of another professional? And now how do I turn that into an actual product that they're actually going to buy? So that's the foundation of business. And then building the CE business is the walls and the root and everything else, right? So you have to build that foundation. So big question is that, what skill, what information do I have that can solve a specific problem within a specific field? If you can answer that question, you have a business.
No, and I agree. And I know personally, I have some courses on my website and I did not lay the foundation. So I can definitely tell you it was built on sand because it was one of the, somebody, I might talk to 3 different people in a row who have the exact same problem. And I'm like, oh, light bulb. I'm going to create some type of a course on this. And then I create the content, create some videos, some downloadables, some worksheets, kind of get them in the right direction, and then upload it to my site. And I'm like, oh, hey, it's here. And then it's disconnected from anything else that I'm offering. And so I can definitely, I'm just attesting to that. I agree. Build the foundation first, figure out the mission, how, what are you trying to convey to people? And then it builds up from there. Cause I know I lost my way and at some point I'll get back to it if I ever have time to breathe and think about it. So something that I like how you say things, you talk about continuing education and making that like the focus is about the education part. And I love that. And for lawyers so even as like I'm a CPA and I have to have continuing education hours that are very specific to accounting. Lawyers have to have continuing legal education, CLEs. But I like being able to say continuing education as opposed to courses or coaching. So why, I have to imagine that there was very intentional purpose in saying continual education versus coaching and courses. Can you share like more of what that, like, what was the decision to use the phrase continuing education as opposed to coaching and courses?
Because continuing education scales into a 7 to 8 figure business much quickly than just courses and coaching does. Okay.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. Number one, it's required, right? So professionals have to have continuing education credits, hours, whatever you want to call it. Each profession's different. They have to have it to continue working. So it is not something that's optional, right? So you have automatic built-in demand, immediate demand, right? And number 2, it's a tax write-off. Like it's usually a write-off, right?
Right.
And so for those 2 reasons right there, you automatically set yourself way ahead of someone who just wants to build some courses or do some coaching. And then also, oftentimes employers give these professionals some kind of continuing education stipend or something, right? You get a job and they're going to say, we'll give you $2,000 a year in continuing education, stipends or whatever. Okay. So now your customer's not even paying for it. It's free to them. They have to use the stipend. It's usually use it or lose it. Right. And so what you'll find with the continuing education course business is that you will make 30% of your yearly revenue in December because those stipends expire.
Exactly. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been self-employed for 20 years. And before that, I worked in corporate and then I worked in big accounting firms. And now when I was at a big accounting firm, all the training was in-house because I was at an international a CPA firm. So everything was in-house. It was internally developed. I ended up, once I became a manager, became one of the teachers. So it was all in-house. I had very limited choicing. But when I left public accounting and went into corporate America, you're right. I had so much money that I could spend each year on furthering my education, knowing they hired me as a CPA and I have to keep my CPA license. And I would find it, if I went to my boss and said, "Hey, I have these courses I'd like to sign up for." If I could show them that I'm continuing my education within accounting and I worked in banking. So if it was somewhere around that, then it was all like, "Yep, where do I need to sign? I'll approve it." If I was trying to sign up for some course on, Canva or video editing, my boss would be like, "I'm not paying for that." So, but no, I agree, like furthering your skills, it just benefits your employer. It benefits you. I mean, obviously it benefits you as the person taking the class, directly, but like I just love supporting other people. So I love what you're doing with all this. So, so how do you identify whether someone's knowledge is actually valuable and that can be turned into a product? So, we're talking about lawyers. I can imagine like lawyers, I would see lawyers could go two ways. They could either go the path and say, I want to help other lawyers start their own law firm. Like I've done it, been there, done that. I can teach you all of my lessons, the hard earned ones. I can help you shortcut some of that. So there's that one path. And then the other path would be trying to reach clients. And so, say, not necessarily, and I'm probably going to throw out an example, it might be a bad example. I'm not thinking through this, but say somebody is a bankruptcy attorney and they want to help, clients, but really it's just to generate, it's educating clients, potential clients, getting them far enough into the process where they're understanding bankruptcy and what they're in for, but then they kind of stop at that point. Because then you can turn it back into, okay, you're still struggling with this. You can't file bankruptcy on your own. You need to hire an attorney. I've been there for you. I've got you, buddy. But, so do you see two paths that way? Or like how do we convert like the knowledge? Say, this is what I want to teach. And then how do I know that that's a viable subject to go forward? Like, do you have like some type of a process to test what's good and what's not good?
Well, those are two paths that you identify, but you also missed probably one of the biggest ones. One of the ones that is often overlooked, but could potentially be the most profitable, especially for an attorney or even a CPA, is targeting a completely other type of professional. So as an example, you are a lawyer that does malpractice. What if you create a course for doctors on how to avoid malpractice? Now you're targeting another professional, okay, who really, really, really wants to know what you know, right?
Right.
Or let's say you are a divorce attorney and you see how many, many people get, part of my language, screwed.
I mean,
Okay.
trust me, divorced.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
Story.
And, right. And so what if you were a divorce lawyer and you decided not necessarily to target a specific professional, but you were going to target professional men on how to protect their assets? You know what I mean? So there are, so there's a variety of different things you can do here. You don't necessarily have to target just lawyers, and you don't necessarily have to target just clients. If you target clients, in a way, it gets them up to a certain point, and then they come in as a lead to your practice. At the end of the day, you're still giving yourself more work, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's a valid point.
Yeah. So the goal here is for you not to have to exchange your time for dollars. So path 1 and path 3 allows you to do that, right? And so to answer the high level question there underlying all this was, how do you figure out what to even teach, right? Like, how do you figure out what's even valuable and what's not? And it really comes down to the problem you're trying to solve. And so some people just try to think more. Some people think too much about their knowledge and what they want to teach without really thinking about the problem they're trying to solve. And so the bigger the problem, the more in demand your course is going to be, and probably going to be a higher ticket course as well. And so what problems are just prevalent within whatever specific target demographic you want to choose here. If it's going to be lawyers or if it's going to be, let's say, doctors or whatever, what's a big problem there? And how am I going to solve that problem? And then first identify the problem and then look at the knowledge that you have and say, okay, I can really teach them how to solve these problems. Right. And so, as an example, a big problem that I saw within the medical community was people were so scared of getting sued and losing their assets. Okay. So I created a course through the Elite Nurse Practitioner on how to protect your assets. Right. So that's kind of how I framed it, make it fun. Right. How to protect your assets. Okay. Because number one, I became a millionaire and I started really worrying about protecting my assets. And so I went down this huge rabbit hole on protecting assets, hired lawyers, got trusts, all this kind of stuff. So I went through it. I experienced it. And then I had an asset protection lawyer partner with me, and we created a course that teaches medical providers how to protect their assets. And the course did really, really well. And it's a fantastic course that you can take and get a good understanding of what you need to do and what to look out for, et cetera. Right. So it comes down to the problem. You have to figure out a problem first. If there's no problem, your course is going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, and that's a good point because like I said, I know the courses I've created, they've helped some people, but I don't think I'm looking at the big problem. I'm not going far enough with how I present it. So I guess that leads me into my next question, which would be, okay, so somebody listening, they're on board, they're going to create a course or create some type of continuing education platform. What is the biggest mistake that you see people making that they just can't get it off the ground? Is it that they're not defining the big enough problem, so it's just not marketable, or is there something else?
Well, I guess let's break it down to, I guess, two issues. Let's say that what's the problem where they can't get started, and then where's the problem after they start and they just can't get any momentum, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so number one, they just can't get started. It's usually just complete analysis paralysis. They just freeze on what they're going to teach, or they start getting imposter syndrome and they don't think they're good enough to teach this topic, or they simply just don't know the steps on how to actually start a real CE business, So, but what I see most of the time that people that come to me for help is that they usually just get stuck with the idea. They don't know if it's actually valuable or not. And like I've literally helped some people within 5 minutes of a phone call, their entire idea is destroyed because I think it's just dumb. Like I just tell them straight up, I think this is a dumb idea. I'm going to be honest with you. It's what you're paying me for, right?
Yeah,
like it's just a dumb idea. And then by the end of the call, they have an idea that they feel comfortable with and they go, right? So, and then, number two is they start the business and then it just falls on deaf ears. Usually that issue is going to be what we just talked about. Either you're not really solving a problem. Sorry. No one really sees this as valuable, that tends to be a big problem, but most of the time I find it's something to do with marketing or messaging. That's usually what the issue is. Like, they are solving a real problem and they developed a pretty good course product, and and the solution's pretty solid, but they're messaging it the wrong way or they're marketing it the wrong way. And then that's usually an easy fix, so.
Okay.
Yes, that's kind of what I see.
Okay. And that makes sense. And I know for a while, and I don't know if you know who he is, but I followed Jeff Walker and he's all about launches. So you do all this prep, like you get your stuff ready, whatever it is, and you get it ready, and then you pick a date, and then you have a whole series of emails and videos that get released in maybe the 3 or 4 days prior to some official launch date. And it's all about this launch and the hype. And I've listened to his stuff over and over, and I agree with what he's saying, or I get that what he's saying, it works and it works well for him, but I struggle to get that excited about putting together a launch. So do you do an actual launch and then that's when you started your website? Or when you create a new course or a certification, are you doing some hype around it? Or is it, hey, just letting current members know I guess it's more about the marketing piece of it. Are you doing some type of an official launch and creating hype about things, or are your course, the people who have completed your courses, are they doing some of the hype for you? Like how are you marketing your stuff?
Yeah, you always want to have some kind of launch. I mean, for sure. And you always want to have some kind of special discount with the launch, early bird pricing or the launch discount, for 2 weeks only, it's 25% off, something like that. So you definitely always want to have some kind of official launch for sure. Um, once you start building a solid customer base and building an audience, then uh, those people usually will come back and buy more courses from you, right? So the goal is to have, see the lifetime value of the customer should be fairly large here with a CE business. You don't want to create a product that's just a one-time thing and that's it. Your goal should be to develop more courses as you go, so you extend the lifetime value of every single
Yeah.
customer. Yeah. So, so so I guess to answer your question really is that if you are just starting a CE business and this is your very, very first course, you are going to have to market the hell out of it. You're just going to have to. No one really knows you exist quite yet, right?
Right.
Now, I will caveat that and say though, if you did it if you approach it a different way, if you spent 3 to 6 months just building an audience, providing free value out there through a podcast, and articles and videos, etc., and then sell a course 6 months later, your chances of success are much greater because you have an audience now, you have a customer, you have a base, you have some fans.
Right.
They will buy your course. So the CE businesses that I've seen that do the best build an audience first over a period of 6 months, which feels like a real grind because you're not making any money. You're putting a lot of work into this. And you're hoping this course is going to sell. And it's a real stab in the gut if it doesn't. And sometimes that happens. So if you're just starting and you don't build an audience, you're going to have to spend some money marketing it. Just social media marketing is fine, whatever, if you have an established business, then usually all you have to do is just launch it to your audience, to your email list, post it on your social pages. And normally you'll probably get some decent amount of sales just from that. And then you throw a little ad up or something. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So, so let me ask you this: does platform matter? Because there's Skool. I mean, my stuff's on Podia, and Podia is fine, but I know I went through that whole Alex Hormozy thing over the summer. But he had that marathon, like 13-hour. I don't even remember how long it was. It was too long. YouTube Live. And the whole thing like started directing people into Skool because he's co-owner in Skool. So does platform matter when it comes to creating some type of CE content? I don't know what yours is based in.
No, it makes no difference whatsoever. I mean, at the end of the day, does your student really care about your tech stack or the course hosting platform? They could care less. They are there for the information, the knowledge, and the transformation. It can be on a piece of paper in a Google Drive file. Like it doesn't really matter. Obviously, I wouldn't do that, but but like it doesn't really matter that much. All these course hosting platforms nowadays are practically the same thing. I mean, the differences between them are so minute. It doesn't make that much of a difference. Your goal is, can you host your course? Can you put some videos on it? Can you put some additional resources in there? Can you add a quiz or something? Can they get a certificate, at the end of it or something? And is it easy to log into? At the end of the day, anything else doesn't really matter that much.
No, I agree. I mean, and I've seen it. Like anything that I've participated in has run the gamut from, hey, here's a link to my Google Drive or Dropbox folder that has all the stuff you need. And then I've been involved in things on Skool, on Kajabi. And you're right. Like the platforms all seem to function similarly. They have different price points though for the seller, but yeah, no, I agree. And I was just curious of what your take would be on it. Um, but you're right, ease and the transformation. I think that's really the critical piece is who's ever taking the course, if they can get through that transformation that you promised, they're willing to buy another course from you and go the next step, whatever that is in their journey. So let me ask you this. So you do podcasts. I think you even have a podcast. Is there a question that you wish people would ask you about CE that you're like, man, there was another interview I just did and somebody didn't ask me? What would be one thing you'd want to share with an audience about continuing education?
I guess really like why even bother? Like a lot of people don't even put the thought into this. It never crosses their mind. And I guess it's just really why even bother starting a CE business? Why should I even bother putting all this energy and effort into starting another business? Like I'm already spread thin over here at my law firm or my medical practice or whatever, And so I don't get asked that very often. So
Yeah.
to answer that question, I guess is
No, and it's a great answer because I know, so I'm a fractional CFO and that's one of the first things I'll ask new clients. What's your why? Why do you even have your law firm? And, they'll usually say, I want more money. And I'm like, okay, well, I get that, but really what's the next why? And then it falls into, well, I want to live in a certain region that I can't afford right now. I want to put my kids through a certain school system. It turns into, I want to take vacations, 2 a year or whatever it is. I have a bucket list I want to get through. So it's not always like money is like the initial answer, but there's usually so many other reasons behind it that I agree. Like it's digging into that why. Then I use it for my work. I can use it as a reminder. So when things get tough, it's like, hey, let me go back through my notes. The first time we met, I asked you about your why, and you told me it was, this. And are we getting there? Are we moving you closer to that why? And so it helps to be able to hold that carrot out there to continue the inspiration, right? Because it does, you get spread thin, multiple businesses. I own a couple businesses myself, and 2 of them are just failing miserably because I don't have time because I pour all my heart into my accounting practice and it just kind of everything else just kind of falls by the wayside and it sucks because my other 2 are just fun things. So hobbies
yeah.
that I've turned into businesses. And so it's kind of, it is what it is, but there's only so many hours in a day. And so it's what you do with what you have, right?
Problem. Well, I mean, did you want me to answer that question though?
Wait.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I mean, like, okay, all right. All right. So yeah, like why start a CE business to begin with? Right. Like, I think that all the stuff that you just said is completely applicable to this. It's like, why do you want a business, an income stream for you that is literally location independent? You can be anywhere in the world. Like I was in Mexico last week and I still was able to do some work. All I need is an internet connection. You know what I mean? I was still
Yeah.
making money. I usually make more money on vacation than I spend because it's just passive, right? And so it's location independent. It's predominantly passive income. Now, I'm not going to say it is 100% passive because that's just a lie. Anyone who says whatever is 100% passive, it's typically a lie. It's a scam. This is partially passive. I mean, you do have to put some effort into it. Starting the CE business is going to take you 80 to 120 hours of your time. And I'm talking about focused hours, not just an hour
Right.
here, going through Instagram, 30 minutes here. Like I'm talking about, 180 to 120 focused hours. But then once it's done, it's done. Like it's built. The course is done. The CE business is done. All that work now, it's complete. After that, it takes 5 to 10 hours to keep operational. Like it's very, very hands off. So I guess the why is if you want something that's location independent, that's partially passive in nature, that's practically zero liability, that requires minimal, if any, staff at all, and has extremely low overhead, consider a CE business. Yeah.
No, and I like that you point out that it's not completely passive income because I will have conversations with people and they'll say, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z because it's passive. And I'm like, okay, there's very limited passive income that's truly passive. Like you still have to put the effort into creating it or obtaining it, but yet then you have maintenance mode, right? So whatever that is, Cause I even know, like, I know people who own real estate and they'll have these rental properties. And I'm like, okay, I get from a tax perspective that might be considered passive income for taxing, but it's not passive. You've got to work it. You got to build, you got to do the leases. You've got to collect the rent. You've got to maintain. Something happens. Something always happens. So it's not truly passive. It's not you just buy a building and just go lease it. You've got to have something. There's always going to be work to it. So I'm glad that you pointed out there is actual work to create and maintain a CE business. So, well, I have loved talking to you today, Justin. Definitely I wrote down some notes in my head of things that I need to go back and do. And so I hope that this is inspiration for our audience that if they're just considering branching off, because a lot of attorneys I talk to, they instead of thinking different businesses or different forms of money, they think about different practice areas. And so and I struggle with that notion because if you normally practice family law, it would not be a good fit to add bankruptcy because now all of a sudden your mind has to shift into two separate sections of tax code or law. And then what is applicable, what's not. And it just gets a little crazy in my head. But if you're taking what you're normally doing day to day in your law firm and you're like, hey, this is all content, like I can create this into something and it can be CE. And now I can create somewhat of a somewhat passive income stream. Like now you have things that are rolling and you have a better foundation money wise, right? For to whatever your why is. So whatever your goals are. So I just want to thank you today for being on this podcast, Justin. I hope you've appreciated being here today.
No, absolutely. I have. You're pleasant to talk with. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. And I think I'll leave it with this though, because I know a lot of people out there are worried about artificial intelligence in terms of taking over a lot of the duties that we do. You know what I mean? I mean, you as an accountant, lawyers, even stuff in medicine, like this stuff is it is displacing things for sure. And so, one question I get often is, well, why even bother with this if AI is going to do everything? And I'll sort of leave with people, with who might have that fear is that Chat GPT does not have the 10 years of experience that you do. Chat GPT does not have the blood, sweat, and tears that you do. It does not have all the experiences you have, the failures, the successes. It doesn't have that stuff. And at the end of the day, when you create a continuing education course business, that is what people want to know, is they want to know you. They want to know your experiences tied in with the solution that you're presenting. So I just wanted to leave people with that. Like, don't worry too much about it because you are special. You do have some stuff in your head that people will continue to find valuable regardless of AI or not.
No, and I agree. I mean, I use AI and it's usually for brainstorming or role playing because I'm horrible with confrontation. So if I know I have some type of a confrontational discussion coming up or I anticipate it, I'll get right into chat and be like, hey, pretend you're this person and I'm this person. If I say it this way, how are you going to react? And what would my response be? And I'll do role play. I love AI for that stuff. But you're right. It doesn't know us. Like we have our education, we have our experiences, and that is something we can convey. And it's definitely valuable to other people. So before we sign off, what would be the best way for somebody to get in touch with you? Like what socials are you most active on? What's your website, stuff like that. And we'll make sure that we'll put links in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. So just the website's ProCourseStart.com. So it's just ProCourseStart.com. I'll make a page too for your podcast listeners. So it'll be ProCourseStart.com/podcast/law firm. And it'll basically just be a few options on there in terms of subscribing to our email list. Or if you want to check out, the ProCourse Start Blueprint, which is our 15-hour master class on how to start a CE business from start to scaling to even selling the thing. And so, that, and then, and then you always just I'm still an email guy. I still like email. I just do. So Justin@ProCourseStart.com, shoot me an email if you have any questions whatsoever. Happy to answer them. And then, I'm on social, Instagram and Facebook, ProCourseStart. I was on LinkedIn, but after giving them my ID 6 times, I just gave up. I don't know any other way to prove to you who I am.
I know. Yeah, I had been at one point, I was trying to get on every single social media platform and then it was exhausting. And then I'm like, what am I doing? And I've got to narrow down the list. So, but I know what you mean. It's hard. It's hard to get validated and all I luckily it had something to do with TSA, I think. So I'm on LinkedIn and I have some little a blue dot by my name and it had something with, I had to validate who I was and it had something to do with TSA. I'm like, what does this have to do with I'm like, what am I doing? It's all crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to keep you anymore. Thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciated being here today with talking with you.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
If you are listening to this podcast episode and you're thinking, I know I need to understand my numbers in my law firm better, but I'm just not ready for CFO support. That's exactly why I created a program called Profit Strong 90. Now, Profit Strong 90 is a structured 90-day course designed specifically for law firm owners who want financial clarity without the overwhelm. So, inside this course, you're going to learn how to understand your profit and loss without feeling intimidated, identify where profit is leaking from your firm, improve cash flow predictability, build financial habits that support long term growth, and make better decisions using real data instead of gut instincts. Now, this isn't theory, it is practical step by step guidance built around how law firms actually operate. If you want to feel more confident looking at your numbers, if you want to stop guessing, and if you want to build a stronger financial foundation for your law firm, I can't make this any better of an offer. It's free. Click the link in the show notes below to join Profit Strong 90. This is where clarity starts for you.